In his lifetime, Louis was an immensely successful king. He was grand, he was serious, he was hard, and he had a huge vision, and he was going to implement it. I am the state, he said. L'État, c'est moi.
He is one of those kings that is just a force of nature. His influence stretched across Europe. The fashions of France during his period, that all came from him, the monarch. The life that was led at Versailles was so decadent and so over the top and so lavish. The entertainments that went on for days, and a kind of loose morality that was like nothing that most ordinary people could even conceive of.
This is excess, luxury and dictatorship to an extreme. He believed that the whole of France revolved around him, and that was his achievement.
In this episode, we examine the fashion of Louis's court, explore the real reason the king loved perfume so much, and discover the sumptuous meals he ate every single day.
I'm Tracy Borman, and I'm going to take you behind the scenes to find out what really went on here at Versailles and in the private life of King Louis the XIV. Louis the XIV came into the world on September the 5th, 1638 at Saint-Germain-en-Laye. He then spent much of his early life here at the Palais Royal in the centre of Paris.
King Louis XIII died in 1643, and so, aged just 4, young Louis succeeded to the throne of France to reign as Louis XIV. During his childhood, his mother, Anne of Austria, served as regent with the formidable First Minister, Cardinal Mazarin, at her side. But in 1661, at the age of 22, Louis took over. From then on, he ruled alone.
His ambition meant that when he achieved his majority and became ruler, he didn't want to have a chief minister. He was going to do it all himself. But it was too much for one man to do. So in the process, he became at times vindictive, he became overly authoritarian, and he didn't really care about the nobles or the French people. His idea was a grandeur of France.
He had a real sense of the divine importance of monarchy and how he was God's representative on earth. And he was the center of everything. And this is why he took the sun as his emblem. He wanted to be the sun, the center of France, so that everything else would revolve around him. And he really built on this idea of him being the divinely appointed king of France.
He was called Dieu donné, God-given. And his first advisor, Cardinal Mazarin, said, you know, you rule by divine right, divine intervention. You rule because God wants you to rule. And then he calls himself the Sun King. So he believes that he is this divine royal personage. I mean, it's completely bonkers, but everybody, of course, buys into it.
The royal court changed locations from here in Paris to the Palace of Versailles. When it was inaugurated in 1682, there was enough room to house the entire court of the king. Life there revolved entirely around Louis, and the most important thing was to somehow gain the king's favour.
Well, Versailles was like a giant gilded bubble. It looked great from the outside, but as soon as you opened the door, it was almost the opposite. It would have been a kind of difficult, quite inorganic place to live. This was the kind of the centre of the sun god's realm.
He was a very hard man, and he was a very serious man. To do what he wanted to do, which is bring all the nobility into one place and control them, he had to be despotic in his character, and he was. I don't think he was a very likable person.
He could have whatever he wanted in life. He could have any woman he wanted. He could have all of the material wealth, all of the clothing, all of the food. He could have beautiful palaces and carriages and gardens. And he went for it.
ways to get noticed by the king was to be fashionable. A well-dressed courtier stood a much better chance of gaining influence. But then, as now, none of it came cheap, and the strict Versailles fashion code certainly helped empty the pockets of the great and the good. I've come to leading Parisian costume house Sommier, who have agreed to dress me to impress,